Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel Your Stars Aligned. This is Carmina, and I'm an astrologer with the Vedic principles and a card reader with the cards of truth. And today for our interview series we have a special guest, and it's Neeshee, Neeshee Pandit. And Neeshee is Vedic astrologer as well. He's also an Ayurvedic practitioner. He has his website atmaastrology.com, and he recently started a YouTube channel, so I'm going to post that below so you can go show him some love. And and I have Neeshee today with us because we want to talk about an interesting topic about children's astrology and children's charts. Welcome, Neeshee.
Thank you, Carmina. It's a pleasure to be here.
And I forgot to mention that we met because we're students of Ernst, and we met on the forum talking about things. Yeah, if you want to say anything else that I omitted about you or your website or what you do.
No, I think that was a great summary.
Okay. So do people often come to you looking for their chart analysis for their kids, or how do you have that experience?
Well, I think, for the most part, I do readings for adults because it's usually adults who have questions, who have problems in their life, who need answers, So I think, adult readings are a lot more common, at least for me. But there have been a few charts I've read of children, and when parents are curious about their child and who is my child? What is my child like? What is his life going to be like? All these type of things, come up. And I think it is really interesting for parents to have their child's chart read because it can help them a lot in understanding their child, and what their potentials are, what kind of patterns are there, How can they really work with that child to support their development in the best possible way, knowing some of these things. And so when you reached out to me, said you wanted to do this interview and talk about children's charts, I thought that would be a lot of fun because I've really enjoyed doing the readings for children. It's a totally different experience for me than when I'm reading an adult chart. I don't know if it's similar for you.
Why is it different?
It's funny, why is it different? Because we're looking at the same thing in everybody, basically. We're just looking at the birth chart, and that's like the moment you're born, So in a sense, we're looking at the same time for everybody, whether it's a child or an adult, But there is something about reading the chart of a child that's very different because they haven't lived yet, They haven't lived their life yet. They haven't become somebody yet, It's like when an adult comes to you, they're like, yeah, I'm a business person and, I'm married and I've had 3 marriages and, right now I'm having a lot of problems in my relationship and, I'm really wondering, what's going to happen in my career. I used to be wealthy and, or all these things. It's like they're already formed.
Jaded.
Yeah. You already have like a lot of ideas about them just because of, their life experience and what they tell you. Yeah. With the child, you don't really know anything. And so I think just how people tend to find children to be a reflection of purity on some level, I see that the energy of that in the chart too. Like when I'm reading for a child, I feel that like, yeah, I don't really know what's going to happen here on a certain level. I don't know who this person really is. I'm just looking at the chart to see what's going to unfold. What do I see just in the chart? I don't know anything about this kid, He's not developed. That's really a totally different situation. It's fresh, And it's inspiring to me to read a child's chart because you can see all these potentials, It's like just the pure potential is there, You haven't seen, the hands of fate yet, You're just seeing like the potential of what is probably going to happen, What kind of a kid this is, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. But you don't have any sense concretely yet of how that's shown up in their life because it hasn't,
Yeah, and I think it's also good because you can guide the parents like how to deal with the more negative stuff in the chart, how to handle, all that. So I think that's very, very valuable because some people are unprepared. Like my child is hyperactive. My child is, yeah, but okay, you can do this. Like you can guide them towards a sport or something instead of putting them on medication or something,
Yeah, or to look at the dashas, you know,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
like, look, during this period of time, your child is going to be having like some 20 years of Rahu, you know, and it's like, you know, parents always pull their hair out because it's like, oh my gosh, like my kid was such a good kid, and now they just seem to be like really going through a tough time, and I don't know why, I don't know what to do, and it becomes really stressful. And like, I mean, every time I've looked at a chart, you know, of a parent who was distressed about the state of their child, the child was in a Rahu Dasha, you know, and it's like, well, you know, let's just look at this a little bit, you know, bigger picture. Like, your child hasn't like gone down the tubes, you know, it's just, this is just that period of time where they're really confronting the shadow, you
Yeah.
know, the insecurities. This is a tough time. So it's like, it can help just looking at what's going to be happening in your child's consciousness, you know, generally speaking, you know, as they go through these dashas, and how can you support that in them and not freak out?
Yeah, and also I think it's fun about looking at the child's chart that you also see the parents reflected in that chart, and you can see their shortcomings, and you know, you can see the whole
Mm-hmm.
family luggage. What do you
Yeah,
think
that's
about
right.
that? Yeah.
I think that's fascinating because also when we look at parents' chart, we can see the kid too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. When we look at the child's chart, we see the parents. And so, yeah, because the children are the product of the parents in so many ways. You know, they have the karma to be born to those parents, you know, and those parents have the karma to have conceived that child. And so that's why we see it in both of the charts, because their karma is completely linked. They are one pattern in a way, you know,
Yeah.
and yet they're totally different beings, you know, like some of us can reflect on our parents and think, wow, we're just so different from our parents, you know, like maybe we have a totally different life path even, but still, you know, in some significant way, we are part of that pattern, you know?
Yeah. So it's like a food for thought for the parent as well. Like, okay, if you show up like this, maybe you should take like a good hard look at yourself and, I don't know, see your shortcomings in this area. And maybe you want to work on that.
Yeah, and I think also like when we see these type of connections through the chart, it's important to reflect on the nature of fate, you know, and karma, and to realize, you know, a lot of parents who have difficult children or who struggle with parenting or who feel like, gosh, you know, why is my child so screwed up? You know, or like, why am I having such a hard time? You know, and other people seem to have such good kids, or their kids don't
Yeah.
go through what my kids are going through. It's like, well, if you look, you see that like you're going to have this type of child, you know, like for whatever reason, you know, you can see that through the chart in the parent's chart. And it's like, that's what you're going to have, you know, that's just your fate in that way. You're fated to have the child that you have. And so that child is a part of your it's part of your birth chart, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's your
So
creation.
why fight that? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's your creation too. You know, so you don't fight that like this happened to me, you know, it's like this is a part of you, you know.
Yeah.
So that can shift, you know, a person's perspective on what's happening in their life, you know. We talk about, you know, astrology, a lot of things that happen in people's life, you know. Having a child like a life form, you know, that you're raising, that, you know, came from you is huge, a huge thing in somebody's life, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, significant topic.
So I was curious, like, was the child also present when you did the reading for the child, or you just told the parent?
No, just telling the parents.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm curious if you got
That
like,
would have been interesting.
yeah, yeah. Like what they would say, and like, did you get feedback afterward? Like, did they tell you how they're doing with their vocation or what you advised them about?
You know, it hasn't been enough of a span of time between the children's charts who I've read. They're still kids, you know, and so
How
there
old
hasn't
were
been.
they? I'm curious, like, how old were they when you read for them?
One was 9,
Mm-hmm.
and another was like newborn, basically,
Wow.
an infant, you know,
Very fresh.
very fresh, yeah. And so even in the 9-year-old, and I'll share that example later. I mean, he's already, you can see it, you know, pretty well developed in a lot of ways. You know, his personality is, you know, quite strong. You can see all kinds of things already, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So even that's not as fresh as like the newborn, the infant, you know, who you just don't really know anything about yet, you know. They don't speak, they don't talk, they don't, you know, walk, you know, they don't express themselves in any kind of concrete way that says they like to do this or they like to do that, or he's really interested in, you know, these things. You don't know any of that.
Yeah.
It will be interesting to see what unfolds, because when I read the charts of children, I wonder, like, I'd love to know, like, what actually happens. Like, what does this person become? You know, like, I'd be curious to know, like, what is their career? What do they end up manifesting in their life, you know?
Yeah. So when you have like a child's chart in front of you, you look at the vocational factors. You also look at, I don't know, at their dharma path, at their yogas, like whether they're going to be successful, or if they have a dharma path or moksha path or things like that. Like, what are the highlights for you?
You know, for me, the highlight is like, when I'm looking at a chart, it's like I look at it with just nothing, you know? I don't have any idea. I have no ideas. I have no agenda. It's like I'm just pulling it up and I'm just ready to respond to like what is in front of me.
That's perfect.
You know? And I might see, like, I don't know, I'll see what I see immediately. You know, something is going to jump out at me. And from there, I'm just going to kind of trace it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Sun-Mercury conjunction. It's like, oh, great. Okay. Buddha Aditya Yoga. This person is going to be smart. Okay. Great. What are they going to do? Like, how smart, you know, and like what kind of things, what's going on with the 10th house, you know, and, you know, how are their avashtas? You know, I always want to know the avashtas, even for the child, because it's like, that's their psychological state. That's how they feel. You know, how is this child feeling? Because in a way, it doesn't really matter how smart they are in a certain sense. It's like, what's their experience of life going to be, you know?
Will they be happier, nourished, or fulfilled, or stressed out?
Or are they going to feel starved, you know? And is that, you know, because that's going to show up. The parents are going to experience that too, you know? And so the life drama is going to unfold through the avashtas, right?
Yeah.
And so I like to kind of see like into the core of the chart in a way. And one of my favorite ways to do that is with the avashtas. But I'll also look at Navamsha and see what's the lagna in the Navamsha, you know, what are the dignities? I like to see the dignity too. Like, in fact, that's one of the first things I might look at, usually if I see a child's chart or any chart sometimes. It's like, how well placed are these planets? How are they feeling in these signs, you know? And if I see like a difficult planet in the birth chart, I'm going to look at Navamsha dignity and say, well, you know, how weak is this planet really? You know, like maybe he's in his own sign in Navamsha. You know, that's interesting. So I kind of try to get like a picture, you know, of the strengths and weaknesses. And even more important than dignity, I think, is the avashta, you know, how the planet really feels, you know, in these signs and conjunctions and all of that. So, yeah, I look at all those things.
Because you're Ayurvedic practitioner, do you have the tendency like for like possible disease to pop up to you and possible health issues when you look at the chart?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be looking at like the 6th house, you know, what's going on with disease and enemies, and, you know, what's going on with their Saturn. How is Saturn, you know? Is it a good Saturn? That's nice. You know, is it difficult Saturn? How is the sun? You know, how is their vitality, you know? How much life energy, you know, is naturally flowing into them, you know? I'm going to look at that. And I'm also going to look at the moon, you know? How are they emotionally, mentally? How is their self-image? How is there a connection, you know? I'm going to be looking at that too, because the moon is also, you know, one of the major indicators of our life force. So, yeah, you know, in all these things, I'm trying to read like the life energy of this person, you know? How is the life energy flowing in this person? And how is this person flowing with that life energy, you know? And there's obstructions, and then there's places where it's really, you know, working, you know? And so I'm just trying to kind of see all of that and form a portrait, you know? A portrait emerges for me, you know, when I'm looking at the chart of a child or any chart. It's like, who is this, you know?
Yeah, it's so great, like when a client allows you the freedom to just read the chart intuitively, because like everything that you need to know at that moment really pops out to you, know? I think that's the best kind of reading. It's like a prashna. It's sort of, I don't know, you're in the flow of the energy, and I really like that. And usually those clients are the most satisfied after the reading, because they get like what they need, not what they think they need.
That's completely true. I'm so glad you said that, because I've noticed that too. The clients who just say, well, I'm just going to listen. You just tell me. And I'm like, okay, great. You know, it's like, you have questions later, I'll be happy to answer them. I'm just going to get into this, you know, and I just get into a flow, and the reading kind of emerges, you know, and it's like it gets clearer and clearer as the reading goes on, like what's really going on with this person, you know, what they're all about. And by the end, they're usually just, they love it. They're just really happy, you know, and to learn all of that, you know, and they're totally satisfied. They usually don't have any questions.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Like, oh, you lifted a burden off me. Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes it's a burden they didn't even know that they had.
Yeah.
You know, it's deeper, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that is interesting. I think like the worst reading I ever gave, you know, I've said this before, is when somebody asked me, you know, when they were going to get married.
Yes, the day.
Yeah, that was it. That was the only question. And like for me, like the type of person I am, like, you know, that I have like a more like psychological and spiritual approach like my astrology readings. And so, you know, for me, I was like, I took the reading, even though I kind of knew like this is a little bit out of my territory.
Yeah.
But I took it and I saw like, okay, Saturn is, you know, the lord of their seventh house and all those things. And, you know, there's going to be delays in the marriage. But I could tell the person was unsatisfied, and I was unsatisfied because I wasn't able to get into the level of things with them that I felt could really help them.
Yeah, but
you know?
this happened to me like I think last week. There was this person, so I was doing the reading and they were interrupting me like every 5 minutes, and in the end they kind of ignored totally what I said, and they went to their went back to their initial question. So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, what can you do?
Yeah, nothing. You just do your best. Do your best. That's what we do.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
We can't be attached.
All of those things are faded in a way too, you know?
Yeah, it's also like an ego lesson for us, you know, because we can't be attached to the result. We just have to do our best, and sometimes that happens.
Yeah, you know, we give what we're asked for. We do our best, and what comes of that is not really our concern because it's not under our control.
Yeah, you know? Very well said. Okay, we took a bit of a spin-off.
Took a little detour there, but coming back to reading the charts of children.
Yeah, do you want to share a chart? Do you have a chart? I also have one if you have one.
Let's do yours first.
Okay, let's see. Wait 1 second. Share screen. Do you see it?
Yeah, there it is. Okay. First thing is I'm going to say is the Rahu-Saturn conjunction in Scorpio.
With the Lagna Lord. Yeah, and debilitated Venus and debilitated Sun.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting. How old is it? Okay, pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
Not even 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, I don't know. I think this is kind of an intense chart. What do you think?
Yeah, it is an intense chart. I think that in the 3rd house is a Viparit Yoga because there are 2 malefics, but Mercury being with them can also be a malefic. So that could be maybe to their advantage, but it's going to be hard, like hard work. It's not going to be easy.
I think they're definitely like in a process in their life of, you know, trying to find stability.
Mm-hmm. And
that's really, you know, that's really not going to characterize their life, stability, you know, because when I see this Rahu, Saturn, and Scorpio, and then I see Ketu's in Taurus, of course, you know, it's like, I think we see like a loss of stability in somebody who's going to be entering into a transformational process in life in which, you know, there really isn't a lot of stability and transformation. There's just a lot of tumultuousness.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a lot of that in this chart. I think that's a big deal.
Yeah. And maybe the person should like focus on their craftiness, manual skills, because it's Mercury with the 3rd house. So maybe they should work on that, doing crafts or painting or doing those things. because they also have like Venus in the Lagna, and Venus relates to painting, and it also relates to entertainment, and in the second house, Sun with Moon, it relates to singing. So, I mean, I can see some qualities there. I can see some vocational potential.
Yeah, you're seeing like artistic, you know, potentials. Yep, definitely. And I'm also seeing that the Moon is combust and Saturn is combust, and so that's difficult. You know, it's difficult to have Moon combust, you know, emotionally, and Saturn is already, you know, a difficult influence, especially because he's joined with Rahu and Scorpio, and so that doesn't make it easier. You know, they might struggle with Saturnian things, with discipline, organization, you know, motivation.
Yeah. Vocationally, I could also say, you know, when I look at the Navamsha, we look at the Swamsha, and Jaimini says, like the planets in the Swamsha, what kind of weapon they would have. So they have an exalted sun in the Navamsha, so they would be good like fencing with a sword, like if they wanted to take up fencing, I think that would be, I don't know, good for them. So I don't know, that's what I see, like the skills they could develop, the vocation, the sports, like.
Yeah, and I also see the Jupiter in the 10th house, you know, which is interesting. You know, maybe they'll be drawn to those type of professions, you know, counseling, teaching.
Yeah, also Ketu in the 9th, probably they have a background with it, because Ketu is in the 9th house of philosophy, so.
And Jupiter in the sign of Gemini, so again, like I see more along the lines of communicating, you know, a connection.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So yeah, they could be a teacher, you know.
Yeah, but you know, unfortunately for their like dharma, for the Virgo Lagna, Jupiter is a malefic and it's aspecting Venus, and I think it's got a lot of bad yoga points. It's
Yep, they're opposite. What about Mars?
4.1, not so bad. Yeah, but Mars has the word 20, so 0.2 positive and 20.4 negative, so.
So they're born into Mars chart. Interesting.
Yeah, and they're gonna go through Rahu, like you said, 20 years of Rahu.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's really going to be the thing. They're really young. They're going to go through Rahu like really early in their life.
I was born in my Rahu Dasha.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, in Rahu Saturn. Yeah.
Wow.
And because my moon nakshatra is ruled by Rahu.
Right. Yeah. What about the aspects in the Rashi?
Now let's look at the Avashtas as well.
Yeah, let's see the Avashtas too.
Some great Saturn starvation, as we expected with Saturn in Scorpio.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So like getting stressed out, workaholic tendencies.
Yeah, there's definitely plenty of stress here, and with that moon combust, not a lot of the emotional buffer.
And Jupiter, I think, has better positive points than negative, though, so at least they have some delight from that.
Yep, they have some delight from the sun on Jupiter.
And
looks like Mars is helping Jupiter too, huh?
Yeah, Mars is also like has a lot of good points, so at least, I mean, Sun and Mars have more positive than negatives, right? So at least that. I agree. At least that. Venus also is good. I mean, even though it's debilitated, it gets a lot of delight from Mercury.
Yeah, it does. So Venus feels, feels good. Ernst, like Ernst was saying the other day in the forum, like, what was it for? It was in the Rashi course. I can't remember
in
now.
the Rashi course.
The Rashi course saying the debilitated planet is just, inactive, but it can still feel, it can still feel okay. It can still feel good. Look at, depending on the avashtas.
Yeah, I just made a video about that, but I haven't posted it yet. So.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's funny that we mentioned that. Yeah, so I see, I don't know, the moon doesn't have any help. It just agitated, right? So it's frustrated.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any help on the moon. And let's look at the 7th house. Okay, yeah, Pisces. So Jupiter is the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. Do you know anything about this child?
Yes, I do. Yeah, they are very energetic, as we would expect in the Mars Dasha. They like to sing and dance. They are sporty. Yeah, very, very hyperactive. Don't like to sit down and, they like to do stuff all the time. Like they have to do things.
Mm-hmm.
So it shows up with their avashtas.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think it's going to continue because Rahu is ruled by Mars, right? So it's going to be like that until
Yeah, they got a long time coming.
Yeah, until 2037.
Wow.
20 years. So then Jupiter comes. I don't know. And Jupiter, I mean, still gets aspect from Mars, but Mars is its friend. So I think the Jupiter Dasha is going to be better.
Definitely. And I think, a lot of the kind of pain that we see in this chart, could be channeled, like you were saying, artistically. So I think that there could be actually a lot of potential to harness a lot of these more difficult energies and find a creative expression for them. I think this person, if they wanted to be healthy, could find a way to do that by connecting with something creative and artistic, which is already a potential in the chart.
Yeah. What else? Oh, and they shouldn't eat like sugar, like processed sugar, because Saturn with Mars. I think Ern said that at some point in the class. That's bad. It would get them even more hyper.
I wonder about whether the child was, probably don't even have to wonder. I mean, most kids are vaccinated by law. So, because, often,
they weren't. They only got out of like 10 vaccines, they only got one at the maternity, and then they didn't get any. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the Mars Saturn also
is the worst with vaccines.
Yeah, they're sensitive to vaccines or anything that will derange their life force. Environmental pollution. It's not that they don't have energy. Funny thing is, these people typically have lots of energy. Even too much energy, but the energy is not moving in the right places. It's not going to the right places in the right quantities. At the right times.
Yeah.
So that energy is just flowing, in the wrong ways. So, and they're sensitive to that happening. So they have to really take care of themselves.
Do you want to look at your chart?
Yeah, sure.
Or you can share this. Can you share the screen?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing this.
So once you stop sharing. Okay, share screen. Okay, there we go. You see it?
Yep. It's
So,
interesting to see what you look at.
yeah, I think, first thing that stands out to me here is Scorpio Lagna.
Mm-hmm.
The Scorpio always has that energy of intensity, right?
I'm a Scorpio Lagna.
There you go. Scorpio Lagna stands out to me, and Sun Mercury conjunction stands out to me.
Mm.
And also Mercury being in its own house stands out to me. Venus in its own house, and the debilitation of Jupiter.
Mm. So this person can be interested in the occult with the Sun and Lagna ruled in the 8th.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's part of what stands out to me. And they're highly intelligent, like this is a child who they say things, at young ages that kind of like make your jaw drop, it's like, wow, like he seems smarter than, his age would indicate.
Where is Ketu? Let's see. Ketu is Mars in Leo. So they had a position of authority in the past life. Yeah.
Yep. And they have a good Mars,
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that with the Ketu and Rahu in Leo and Aquarius, you can see this is like an intelligent person. This is somebody who's confident in themselves, who's developed themselves before. Of course, the flip side being that they actually are facing a lot of insecurities in themselves, but they're going to present as being like quite confident, quite sure of themselves and secure in who they are, they'll show that. And the Rahu and Aquarius, of course, is showing them, the need to.
It's interesting. You have the outer planets as well.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I like that.
I don't use them that much except when I'm looking at transits, but I don't know. I just like to see the whole picture.
Yeah, it's good. Jupiter debilitated, yeah, that's probably the main problem.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, there's that yoga, of course, with Jupiter and Moon, the Gajacesara yoga.
Mm-hmm. Jupiter is a benefic for Scorpio, so even if it's debilitated, if it has some points, I think it still can give some good stuff.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, Jupiter is exalted in the Navamsha here.
Yeah, that's great. So they get fulfilled with their Jupiterian things.
Yeah, exactly. So even the debilitation is not really as bad.
Mm-hmm.
There is like almost a full aspect, Saturn and Sun. We can see that, that's pretty strong. 58, Virupa.
Yeah, it's almost 60.
Almost 60, right? So that's pretty strong. And so we know that that's some starvation there, right?
On both ways.
Both ways. We know Sun Saturn is like one of the most difficult of Ashtas to deal with.
Because, they don't trust themselves to express their individuality. They don't feel validated, and they feel punished when they express their uniqueness and things like that. So,
yeah, this is somebody who is intelligent, who has a lot of confidence in who they are on the surface, and who has good Mars, good strength and willpower. They're going to go and get what they want, and make happen what they need to make happen. And they have a lot of attributes to help them do that.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, they feel like the wound of life, they feel pained by existence. They feel abused by life and pushed around by life, and, find it difficult to follow that inspiration.
I see, though, that Saturn has the highest Shadbala, so that's good. At least they can push through that. They can crawl through.
Exactly. They can push through. And in general, I mean, the Shadbala is pretty good. There's strong. Look at how strong the Mars is. That means this person is really going to fight, they're really going to have a good fight in life. They're not going to take, the abuses of life sitting down,
Yeah, and also with Mars, with Ketu, they're used to fighting, so.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to keep on doing that.
And that moon, that moon Shadbala is really good too. Second in rank. So, I think emotionally, there's some strength, even though moon is in the sign of Saturn, which is, again, it's not like the greatest thing.
Yeah, some emotional coldness, some more impersonal, not so touchy-feely.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, I see. Like Jupiter has barely their Shadbala, so he has 101. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but compared to the other chart, it's much more happy.
I think so, right? Don't you get that feeling?
Yeah.
It's not as difficult. You can just see this person has developed themselves a lot in the past, and now they're going to have to encounter some of these necessary struggles,
I like they have Venus and Taurus, so they get fulfillment with Venus, so they have the capacity for that. I mean,
and the seventh cusp.
Yeah, well, Venus in seventh cusp is not so good for marriage, but we don't tell that to the parent. Yeah, so I mean, one of the two feminine planets has to be okay. So with Moon is in Capricorn, it's still okay. It's not like so bad, but that Venus is really promising.
Yeah.
So yeah, their feminine energy is okay. Yeah, the Sun 462 still good. I mean,
still good. Yeah, Sun is good.
Okay, what's the Ratma Karaka? Let's see.
You can see the degrees, or I can just do Venus.
Yeah, Venus. Okay, so in the Navamsha,
the Swamsha will be.
It's Virgo. Okay.
What do you think about career?
Moon Mars aspecting Venus. Of course, they will something that will relate to the public because they have Venus in the seventh, and the seventh is the public. So definitely related to that. Okay, Jupiter is aspecting, so maybe some counseling stuff as well, some authorship, because Moon with Jupiter makes one an author as well. They can write at some point. Because they already have that intelligence yoga in the 8th house, so maybe they will get involved with the occult and writing about that, maybe teaching. Let's see, Moon aspecting Venus, Mars, Moon with Mars. I don't know, they can also be like a chef, but a more artistic chef, because Venus is more artsy, so if they do something they will do it like beautifully. I guess. Let's see. So what do you think? What else do you see vocation wise?
No, I think you're right. I think everything you said is really good. And I'm also looking at like the Saturn and the 10th cusp.
Okay. Also a life of accomplished deeds.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they will be hard on themselves to be perfect, kind of. That's Saturn weighing on them.
Now, this is like, I'm just going to check the birth card just because I'm curious.
Yes.
See, 9 of clubs.
Oh, that's like a hermit card. Kind of
hermit
a hermit card. Yeah. Can we look at this year?
Yeah.
No, I'm curious. Okay, age 9.
You want to see the year?
And the birth. Put them both up. Okay, so their path is the 6 of diamonds. So they're like in their life, they're going on the path of financial accomplishment. Let's see where their soul planet is. Okay, so we see that that Moon with Rahu and North Node, because there's a same lordship conjunction there. So yeah, but it's a 2. Let's see where Saturn is. Yeah. Yeah, I can see like they got a lot of love growing up because on the moon card they have a two of hearts. So like when they grew up, their environment was really good and emotionally very supportive. I can see that. And
That's
this,
accurate.
yeah, yeah. Let's see this year what's happening with them. Do, 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 do. Eight. Okay, so the ecliptic this year is an eight of spades. That's being more like fulfilled internally and like not waiting for external validation. And we look at the Rahu card for this year because it's an 8 and 8 corresponds to Rahu, and the Rahu card is a 3 of clubs, which is like an independent thinker. So that's kind of their path this year. It relates to being an independent thinker and asserting their own ideas, like breaking, like flying away from the known philosophy and the things they came together with to be their own person, more individualized, right? That's happening this year. I love the cards.
You want to say anything more about Nine of Clubs being the birth card and nine being, associated with K2 and the fact
Yeah,
that he had been Leo
yeah,
and
yeah. So I also look at their natal K2 card. So that's an 8 of clubs. An 8 of clubs says that's the spiritual teacher. So definitely they come from a background of authority because it was Mars K2 in Leo, some kshatriya type of authority, but also like a wise, like I don't know, a consultant, a strategist, some general type, but like wise mentor figure. That's their past karma. And the Rahu card is a jack of spades. So in this life they need to develop this like survival instinct to be like a soldier, like a spy, to I don't know, to survive in any situation. That's what they need to do. That's what I see here. So yeah, like their inner core is like the 9 of clubs, which is like in tarot it corresponds to the hermit. So a person that is more like a yoga kind of person is more preoccupied with their development, their self-development, more intellectual self-development because it's a club. So yeah, that's what I would say.
that's great. Yeah, I think it's an interesting spread.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, the other person that we looked at was actually an 8 of clubs, and it's interesting how it connects, right? Because the 8 of
Oh,
clubs
right.
is the K2 in this spread, so everything
Yep.
flows together. It's nice.
Yeah, that's funny because I was going to ask you what was the card for the other person,
Yeah, an 8 of clubs. I don't know. Do you want to say anything else about this chart? No.
No, I think
Yeah, we're good. We
we
explained the
covered
way.
it pretty well. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, so parents, don't be afraid to ask for this type of reading, but you should expect like some vocation recommendations and some health recommendations, right? And not ask us in what day they're going to get married.
Right.
Yeah, you can ask us whether they'll be happy. We can answer that.
We can answer that. Yep.
Yeah, so do you have any like events coming up? Anything to announce? I think I'm gonna post this around the 24th, around the eclipse.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to be hanging out with Ernst like the weekend after the eclipse.
Cool.
And might do an interview with him.
Mm.
So
You're visiting him in Sedona?
yeah.
Awesome. Looking forward to that interview.
So yeah, we're wanting to do an interview, talking more about healing and astrology and how those two things really coincide.
Wow. Yeah, I know he's really deep into homeopathy, so I
Yeah.
guess you have a lot of experience to share.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been getting into the homeopathy now too because of him, and so that's like opening up new worlds for me in terms of healing and medicine and like really broadening my horizon. So I'm really excited right now because a lot of new ideas are coming in, and I'm looking at it all with astrology, and just, it's exciting,
You're getting flooded by inspiration.
I'm getting flooded by inspiration right now, which is great because I feel really good when that's happening.
Good. Okay, well, Neeshee, thank you very much for being with us today and sharing your expertise about looking at kids' charts. I really enjoyed this recording with you and
Yep.
hope to have you on again in the future. So go and subscribe to Neeshee's channel if you want to see more of him on YouTube, okay?
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. So see you later. Bye.